Chapter 11. The Cardinals' Conspiracy. The chamber was fuller than usual. The circle of crimson robes extended 3 rows deep, the air heavy with sweat and unease. Cardinal Mancini rose first, his voice low but unyielding. We have word from our contacts. The women are back on the internet. They continue their plan openly to destroy the churches that honor Paul. A murmur rippled across the room. Some made the sign of the cross, others stared into the shadows. It was one of the youngest cardinals who spoke next, his face pale, but his words steady. They have learned too much, perhaps more than we feared. The world is not blind anymore. They have likely uncovered the truth that 2 schools went to war over the Torah itself, the house of Shammai and the house of Hillel, and over the man they called Yah Zeus. He paused, searching the eyes of his elders. Hillel's Jesus taught the value of women. He pointed to the opening words of Hillel's Torah, where the Nazarene was revealed not as the Son of God, but as the Son of Man and woman, who claimed descent from Ansar and Kesar. That lineage of compassion of Father El and Goddess Mother cannot be reconciled with Paul's invention of vicarious atonement. Another cardinal leaned forward, frowning. And why is that so dangerous to us? The younger man's voice sharpened. Because science itself now stands against us. More and more people see that vicarious atonement is not only a moral impossibility, it is a spiritual trap. To teach that one man's suffering absolves all sins encourages selfishness and license for sin. But to teach what Jesus the Nazarene taught, that every act has consequence, that cause and effect is the law of life, encourages compassion and cooperation. He took a breath, then pressed further. And artificial intelligence will make this undeniable. The data is there. Every study shows the same thing. Atheists and agnostics report higher levels of compassion, honesty, and social responsibility than the so-called born-again Christians and Catholics who preach cheap grace. The older men stiffened. Mancini slammed his hand on the table. Statistics cannot replace revelation. Your heresy cannot be tolerated. No, he replied softly, but revelation must bear fruit. If those who believe Paul's Jesus are less honest, less compassionate, less merciful than those who believe nothing, then the fruit reveals the tree. Silence. The chamber seemed to shrink beneath the weight of his words. He pressed on, emboldened. This is the heart of their message. That love, not blood, not sacrifice, is the only way to peace and prosperity for all. They call it common sense. But I tell you, it will feel to the faithful like heresy, and yet it will spread because people are hungry for it. And if it spreads, then Paul's churches, our churches, will wither. A heavy pause fell over the council. Some stared at the marble floor, others at the crucifix above the chamber doors. Mancini finally broke the silence. Then we cannot let their message spread. If love is their weapon, then fear must remain ours. Mancini rose again, his face dark with decision. Then it is settled. Fear will be our answer. The women must be discouraged, silenced if need be. We will send them a message, not from the church, but from the shadows. A text, sharp and threatening, to remind them that they are being watched. Several heads nodded. A few lips whispered Deo gratias. But at the far edge of the chamber, the young cardinal's face stiffened. He said nothing more. He only lowered his eyes and folded his hands until the council was dismissed. Later that night, in the solitude of his chamber, he sat motionless, torn, disappointed, dejected. Then slowly he stood. He removed the crimson garment from his shoulders and laid it neatly across the chair. From beneath his bed he drew a suitcase. One by one he placed in it the plain garments of the street. At last he opened a hidden compartment at the base of his cabinet. From within, wrapped in linen, he withdrew a worn volume, an ancient codex. He held it for a long moment, the candlelight flickering against its faded cover. Then he slipped it carefully into the suitcase, closed the latch, and exhaled. This was no longer his council, no longer his church. The text came just after dawn, when the kitchen still smelled faintly of last night's coffee. Pamela sat at the table in her robe, phone buzzing against the wood. She picked it up, expecting a grocery reminder from Joe or a message from Leah. Instead, her breath caught. The screen glowed with an unknown number, routed through an international code. The message was short, cold, and merciless. Your work is reckless. You will not be believed. Your reputation is dust. Stop before you anger men who are dangerous. True believers do not forgive. They exact revenge, and they cannot be held back. Pamela read it twice, then a third time, her mouth dry. She passed the phone to Leah, who was buttering toast in silence. Leah's hand trembled as she read, the knife clattering against the plate. They're watching us, Leah whispered. Still, even now. Pamela nodded, her jaw tight, though inside she felt the same dread curdling. The Cardinals had already schemed. Now they were reaching across oceans with words designed to choke the will. Joe sat in the corner chair, glasses perched low on his nose, his hand on the arm of the bookcase that concealed the safe. He didn't look at the women, only at the shelves. Behind them lay the extra copy of the Codex, hidden in its fireproof vault. To open it meant facing not only the threats from Rome, but also the absence that filled the house like a draft through a broken window. No Peanut, no Lucas. Leah pushed the phone away, pressing her palms into her eyes. I can't do it, Pamela, not without them. Every time I think of the Codex, I think of Lucas at our feet, Peanut on the rug. They're gone. We're fools for even trying to keep going. Pamela reached across the table, taking her friend's wrist. Her own eyes glistened, but she steadied her voice. I know. I feel it too. But this is what they want. For grief to finish what threats began. I have to continue, but you have to make your own choice. Joe finally spoke, his voice low. It's not just grief, it's guilt. But we can't give in to threats, and we can't give in to grief and guilt. He looked at Leah. Pamela has invested years into finding the truth. To stop now is like betraying the unconditional love Peanut and Lucas brought to us, almost Jesus like love and trust. To stop now feels to me like betraying what they brought to us. Silence thickened. Outside, a dog barked in the neighborhood, sharp and cheerful. The sound cut them like glass. Leah lowered her head against her hands, shoulders shaking. Pamela looked again at the phone. She deleted the message, but the words stayed burned in her mind. You will not be believed. They sat like that for a long time, the three of them in the dim kitchen, the safe unopened, the codex untouched, the absence of wagging tails a weight no one could name. And somewhere across the sea, men in scarlet robes congratulated themselves, certain that fear and sorrow would do what fire once did, silence the truth. The threatening message from Rome had left them shaken but not broken. Days later, as the desert sun lowered over Santa Fe, Pamela pulled the safe open at last. She lifted out the bulky envelope, its flap gaping from too many nervous checks. Inside the loose pages of the English translation, they had run off at the copy shop on Guadalupe Street. She spread the papers on the table and looked at Leah. We have to do this, she said. We cannot let them win. Pamela rested her hands on the papers. This was Polycarp's burden, to hide the truth in plain sight. If he could risk fire, then we can risk fear. Leah's lips trembled, but she nodded. They burned him, she said quietly. Pamela responded quickly. Not Rome, the church. Fire wasn't the Roman way. Beheadings, yes. Crucifixions, yes. But fire? That was Paul's church. Burning people, burning books. Polycarp was theirs to silence. Leah nodded grimly. You're right. We cannot let them silence us. They forced smiles, then buried themselves in their work as newfound energy sparked thoughts of success. Leah slipped post it notes between lines, circled words, wrote quick thoughts in the margins. Pamela's eyes flicked to the Bible lying at the table's edge, spine creased and worn. Let's go where Polycarp worked, to Acts, not for history, for the riddles he planted. Leah opened the book, turning the thin pages with care. It's strange, she whispered. 2,000 years and the threat is still the same. You will not be believed. Pamela gave a wry smile. Well, they can't burn us. Not anymore. Witches aren't set on pyres these days. The laugh that followed was short, brittle, but it was laughter nonetheless. They bent over the table, one with the Codex's translation, the other with Axe in her lap, the notes spilling around them, paper curled under their elbows, pens scrawled quickly, and in the dim light of the lamp, The room took on the same weight it must have carried in Polycarp's chamber in Smyrna: pages, ink, shadows, and the fear of enemies who thought fire could erase truth. Joe passed through the doorway once, watching them. They were deep in their work now, whispering names, underlining words, finding enigmas in plain sight. He turned away without speaking. As he turned, the image of that cheerful kennel sign flickered in his mind again. Pampered pet, with its paw prints and painted fence. He shoved the thought down, burying it beneath his grief. No way, he thought. They're gone.